Hello and welcome to this press conference by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, or NCOSE, to announce the 2017 Dirty Dozen list. My name is Haley Halverson and I'm the Director of Communications here. The Dirty Dozen list is an annual project by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation that names 12 mainstream entities that are major contributors to sexual exploitation, whether that be through pornography, prostitution, or sex trafficking. The Dirty Dozen list is based on the basic but convincing thesis that no corporation or organization should be profiting from or promoting sexual exploitation in any form. It's clear that America is suffering from systemic sexual exploitation, whether it's sex trafficking at the Super Bowl or sexual assault on college campuses. And this fact is inherently tied into the public health crisis of pornography, which is being recognized more and more by states and individuals as the research shows the harms of pornography to the brain, to the body, and to the psychology. Now, we cannot merely legislate or merely educate our way out of this problem. We need everyone in society, from government officials to service providers to educators to, yes, even corporations, gather together and curb sexual exploitation. Yet the disturbing truth is that many well-established brands, companies, and organizations that we invite into our homes in America are major perpetrators of sexual harm. We live in an age where many consumers demand transparency from companies that they trust. We want to know the working conditions in factories or if pesticides are used in our foods. And now, thanks to the Dirty Dozen list, we can know which companies are promoting sexual exploitation. Even better, the Dirty Dozen list gives individuals the ability to make a difference. For each company or institution on the list, there are direct actions that NCOSE makes available through our website, dirtydozenlist.com. You can go there and you can email executives, you can sign petitions, and you can share social media graphics to make sure that your voice is heard. Today, remarks about specific members of the 2017 Dirty Dozen list will be made by Dawn Hawkins, Senior Vice President and Executive Director at NCOSE, and Lisa Thompson, Vice President and Director of Education and Outreach. Starting us off to talk about Comcast and an update on Verizon is Lisa Thompson. Lisa?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for joining us as we launch the 2017 Dirty Dozen list. I'm happy to bring some exciting news to share. We have, well, to begin, Verizon is a company that's been on our Dirty Dozen list for the past 3 consecutive years. But today we're announcing its placement on our Dirty Dozen watch list. And this is indicative of Verizon's progress in addressing sexual exploitation in its business model. And before I explain the details, I need to provide some context. So looking back, the reasons why Verizon's been on the Dirty Dozen list, Verizon has portrayed itself as a mainstream company, as a mainstream technology, media, telecommunications industry leader, but it's also a purveyor of hardcore pornography. So according to Title 18 of the U.S. Code 1468, it's illegal to distribute any obscene matter by means of cable television or subscription services on television. The statute further clarifies that obscene matter is not protected by the Constitution. Verizon, as a distributor of hardcore adult pornography, may be violating this law. And this is a matter we strongly encourage the Department of Justice officials to investigate. Aside from the law, by distributing hardcore pornography into thousands, if not millions, of homes across the nation, Verizon is contributing to the public health crisis of pornography that's deeply impacting our country. Abundant research attests to the fact that pornography consumption has been linked to harmful neurological changes, increased sexual dysfunction, and increased verbal and physical aggression. Now, last year, I met with Verizon's CEO, Lowell McAdam, at their annual shareholders meeting to discuss these issues, and we had a positive conversation. Then, Mr. McAdam has written us to say that for new Fios IPTV customers, display of pornography will be automatically disabled. Okay, so this is Fios IPTV. In other words, this approach means that no longer Well, those who do not want to be exposed to hardcore pornography have to jump through all kinds of hoops to set up filtering controls. Instead, they will be automatically filtered out, and those who want to obtain this kind of material will have to opt in. Now, this represents the first major change by any of the technology, media, or telecommunications industries leaders in the United States. Now, we note that elsewhere in the world, particularly in the UK, there have been some really sweeping changes, and they're very progressive on this topic. But we're very encouraged that Verizon has taken this step and by this development, and we hope that they will actually extend it further, that they'll continue to open up the opt-in model to their existing cable TV customers, not just their new ones, and that they'll extend this to their ISP customers as well. So we're very thrilled that Verizon's taken this step, and we want to keep working with them on this matter. Now, given this advancement, we thought it was time to take Verizon off the Dirty Dozen list and turn the spotlight on Comcast. We wrote to Comcast last year expressing our concern about the hardcore pornography that they've been distributing, and noting the common themes that we found in the pornography available via their platform. And these include things like barely legal teens, incest, racism, misogyny, very disturbing material that they're pumping into millions of homes across the country. Now, Comcast wrote us back, but guess what they said? They defended this material as a benefit to their consumers, to their customers, as just one more choice for their customers. Now, in our view, the only choice here is Comcast's choice. There's no law which requires that Comcast sell pornography, and in fact, they very well may be in violation of the law for doing so. No, Comcast is choosing partnership with pornographies and profit and prioritizing that over the well-being of and the safety of the citizens in this country, and promoting the public health crisis of pornography. So for these reasons, Comcast has been added to the 2017 Dirty Dozen list. And now I'm going to turn it over to Don, who will be sharing with you about Ebsco and Amazon.
Hello. So we are encouraged to announce progress already on the newly named 2017 Dirty Dozen list. Last night we were contacted by Ebsco Information Services, who said that they are open to working with us, and they are already trying to implement improvements. This is a positive step forward, especially as this is one of the greatest scandals covered by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation's Dirty Dozen list. Ebsco is an online library resource company that provides many products that they claim are appropriate, curriculum appropriate, and designed for K through 12 schools. However, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation has discovered that all of their products marketed and in K through 12 schools are intermixing links to hardcore pornography and other graphic sexual material. And we are finding that schools and parents are not aware that this is taking place. We feel that Ebsco has been aware and that they have a responsibility to test their products before they put them into the schools. And for this reason, we have named Ebsco Information Services to the 2017 Dirty Dozen list. Part of the problem with this content through these products is that it bypasses most of the filters provided by the schools. Let me give you a few examples of some of the content that I found through some of their products. I tried to use innocent search terms and I clicked randomly, and we didn't have to look very hard. When looking, for example, at one Ebsco product called Explora, through a middle school portal, we selected the category, sex education, and the third article suggested to us was called The Golden Age of Sex, which contained cartoon graphics and explained how to entice a girl into sexual activity, and then encouraged the readers to engage in anal, public, and group sex because these things are trending up. When looking at the Ebsco portal called Poetry and Short Story Reference Center through a middle school portal, we typed in boys' stories, thinking that this could be a common search that a young child would do to find relevant items to their interests. Many of the hundreds of articles that were suggested were sexual in nature. I randomly clicked on one titled Jeff Kendall's Boys Come of Age, which happened to be a short story of a priest having sex with a woman, being murdered, and then the woman being taken by the killer for further sexual abuse. When looking up the term respiration in their Product Science Reference Center, we found articles encouraging sex between students and teachers, providing tutorials on BDSM or torture sex from porn performers, and links to buy sex toys. I mean, this is ridiculous. Another that glamorized so-called sugar daddy relationships in which an older person pays a young person for sex and companionship. When I used the filter 7th grade biology, the third article down, encourage readers to try out BDSM or torture sex. I mean, this would be 11 and 12-year-olds who are reading this. Our society is struggling to cope with the impacts of multiple forms of sexual abuse and violence. Child sexual abuse, adult sexual exploitation, racially motivated sexual violence, sexual assault on college and university campuses, sex trafficking of women and children, incest. These are all problems that have not emerged from a vacuum, but flourish within the context of unprecedented access to hardcore pornographic material. Adult hardcore pornography, which is being pushed to our children right now through public and private schools on their library systems. It includes raw, brutal, debasing, violent, and hate-filled themes, and it exacerbates the deeply entrenched social ills mentioned above. It unleashes devastating impacts to the individual and the societal level. There's quite a lot of research documenting the harms specifically of pornography to adolescents and to children, to their psychological, social, and physical development. I encourage you to learn more about that on our website. I want to point out that it is just far beyond an individual or a family's capacity to protect against these concerns alone, and we must not allow our schools or major corporations to pass the buck. We need them to join in finding solutions. We're grateful that Ebsco has stepped up and that they're promising to develop better solutions and improve their products. We very much look forward to sharing this progress with the public as they move along, and we also intend to work with other online databases providing similar such content in our schools. You know, often as we're researching these entities for our Dirty Dozen list, we find that many are connected to one another. For example, Joanna Coles, who's the former editor of Cosmopolitan magazine, sat on the board of Snapchat, or Ebsco gives a lot of money to the American Library Association. Another connection we found this year is between Ebsco and Amazon. When looking at the Ebsco product called Novelist through an elementary school portal, I found this Novelist is an audio and ebook product, and I discovered that there was a lot of material that was coming through the portal from Amazon's Kindle. When on the front page of the portal for the elementary school access, I found a category prominently featured titled Adult. I clicked on that adult category and was immediately brought to hundreds of suggestions of mostly adult erotica, almost all of which provided free previews to the content. I clicked on the one randomly, and I found that the content being previewed was coming straight from Amazon Kindle. I clicked on a book called Candy Liquor, which depicted a violent rape of a young woman right there in the free preview section from Kindle. For many reasons, but this one including, we have named Amazon to our Dirty Dozen list for a second time. One reason is for the content available through Kindle, as I explained, which includes thousands of erotica novels, some magazines with visual depictions of pornography, and much of this is not categorized in a way to separate it from places children are likely to look. For example, tons of these books are included in the free sections. We have found erotica mixed with the children's books, and it's being pushed to these schools through Ebsco. Another, while Amazon's corporate policy ostensibly prohibits it from selling pornography, Amazon also features thousands of pornography-related items in numerous categories. Items for sale in their marketplace include hardcore pornography films and videos, magazines, features book collections featuring eroticized child nudity, sex dolls with childlike features, pornographic t-shirts, and much more. Amazon Prime produces highly sexualized television programming, and it provides no means at all for blocking unwanted recommendations for sexually explicit programs. Amazon Web Services is also used to host pornography and prostitution websites. Amazon is the world's largest online retailer. and is known for lightning fast shipping and for selling virtually anything online. But Amazon should be considered also to be among the top facilitators of sexual exploitation. Lisa, can you share with us the next target?
All right, next we want to talk to you about Backpage.com, but we need to fix something, I think, on the screen here, so we'll pause for
Keep going.
We can keep going? Okay. All right, Backpage.com. As I'm sure many of you know, Backpage.com brings the seedy world of the red light districts of America into home computers. As a classified advertising website known as the hub for prostitution advertising, Backpage serves as a virtual auction block where sex buyers can shop for human beings for sex from the privacy of their home, office, hotel room, or cell phone. Many of those bought and sold for sex on the website are sexually trafficked women and children. Now, the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children has reported that 73% of child sex trafficking cases it's handled involved Backpage.com. With operations in 97 countries and 943 locations worldwide, Backpage is likely the largest facilitator of sex trafficking in the world. Backpage has come under tough scrutiny from activists and law enforcement officials in the US for serving as the platform for the open buying and selling of human beings for sex. In particular, it's been under prolonged investigation by the U.S. Senate's Permanent Subcommittee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. The committee's recent report on Backpage's operations has revealed that its website facilitates sex trafficking on its site by editing ads to conceal the underlying illegal activity, the underlying criminal activity that's going on. Now, a day in advance of the most recent Senate hearing on Backpage, at which the CEO and controlling shareholders were supposed to testify, Backpage made a great show of purportedly blocking the prostitution advertising on its website, on its American website. Its most well-known prostitution advertising pages were greeted visitors with this message: "The government has unconstitutionally censored this content." I mean, it was really dramatic, making quite a show of it. So, but the public should not fall for Backpage's theatrical attempt to portray itself as the victim of government persecution or censorship. The only people who are being under attack in this situation are the human beings who are used as fodder in Backpage's gristmill of sexual exploitation. While Backpage likes to wrap itself in the First Amendment and free speech, we know that free speech is not a license to orchestrate sexual exploitation. Moreover, the prostitution advertising occurring on Backpage.com simply migrated to other sections of the website. Now, Backpage executives thus far have escaped criminal prosecution or I should say conviction and civil liabilities for their role in sex trafficking due to a provision of the Communications Decency Act known as Section 230. Congress passed the CDA, the Communications Decency Act, in the 1990s with the intent of protecting children from internet pornography. Unfortunately, much of this legislation was later overturned by the Supreme Court, but Section 230 still stands. Now, the actual plain meaning of Section 230 of the CDA offers internet service providers like Backpage.com limited defense to civil suits not derived from criminal actions. There are some benefits to this. For instance, Section 230, well, it helps the free market for exchanging objects, thoughts, and ideas to take place. For instance, like say for you bought a bicycle online and it didn't work. So you couldn't sue the website who sold it to you. You would have to sue the person who sold you the bike. So that's what this was about. But as we know, people are not objects. They're certainly not to be sold online. But nevertheless, courts across the country have interpreted the CDA to give third-party hosting sites carte blanche immunity for everything and anything that happens online on their platforms. And this is how Backpage gets away with profiting from the sale of women and children. The courts have consistently chosen to ignore the plain language of the CDA, misinterpreting phrases that they claim are ambiguous, and thereby offering ISPs complete immunity from all criminal and civil liability for anything that is facilitated via their internet platforms. And the result is a lawless internet. Crimes that are not permissible offline are flourishing as long as they're facilitated via the internet. People operating as pimps are allowed to continue their role as organizers of sexual exploitation as long as they do so behind the veil of an ISP. The single biggest obstacle, trafficking and sexual exploitation in the US today, is the court's interpretation of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And so therefore, we're calling on the US Congress to take swift and strong faith no longer have de facto immunity for facilitating egregious sexual exploitation on a global scale. There have been previous efforts to do this, but they were opposed by a powerful partnership of technology companies and First Amendment radicals who think there should be no consequences for people's actions online and that business interests always trump human rights. But in our view, the First Amendment isn't a license to sexually exploit people, whether in the real world or online. So we will be dedicating major time and resources in the year ahead towards seeking an amendment to the Communications Decency Act that will allow those who facilitate sex trafficking and sexual exploitation to be brought to justice. And we hope you will join with us in that effort. And now we'll be turning to Dawn, who will be talking about one of our other targets.
So not only is prostitution and trafficking happening on seedy websites like Backpage.com, but it's also happening on mainstream popular sites that almost all of us are using regularly. We are seeing particularly that prostitution is rampant on websites like Snapchat. Snapchat is arguably the most popular smartphone app used by millennials and teens. It is frequently used for sexting and for the sharing of self-produced child pornography images, and there are many reports of cyberbullying taking place regularly through the system. We are especially concerned by evidence which shows that some cyberbullying activity involves sexual harassment and coercion, and it is our view that much of the activity referred to under the guise of sexting actually represents cyber-based sexual abuse. We have named Snapchat to our 2017 Dirty Dozen list for a second year. Their official terms of service prohibit the posting of pornography, graphic violence, of threats, and it prohibits the buying and selling of snaps. However, it is abundantly clear that these rules are not followed or adequately enforced. And ultimately, it is the responsibility of Snap Inc. and Snapchat to ensure that its terms of use are not just hollow suggestions, but are true rules that govern its users. Let me point out two particular major problems that we see with Snapchat right now. The first has to deal with their Discover feature. We applaud their move last month when they announced that they were cracking down on some of this material available through their Discover Stories feature. However, we feel like they finally did that after immense pressure from groups like ours and others. However, we're seeing that these new guidelines that they issue to publishers that include restrictions on profanity, on sexualized content, on sex acts and sex toys within the story tiles, have been left up to the publishers themselves to enforce. This is leaving Cosmopolitan Magazine, MTV, and Comedy Central, among others who are the worst offenders of sexually explicit content, to take care of filtering out the content themselves. Snapchat should not get too big of a pat on the back for this. An additional issue that we have with Snapchat is their feature called Snap Cash. I would argue that Snap Cash was built for the sole purpose of allowing Snapchat to cash in on the immense amount of sexting and prostitution taking place through their system. The Snap Cash feature enables users to send money right through Snapchat, and Snapchat takes a percentage of this. We feel that their business model specifically facilitates sexual exploitation. I have seen countless posts on on Snapchat, as well as on other social media sites such as Instagram and Twitter, where individuals are posting sexualized images and encouraging people to find them on Snapchat, send them Snap Cash for more webcam services, for more pornography and prostitution services. So this is very much taking place on Snapchat. Another target that I want to identify as being listed on our 2017 Dirty Dozen list is Roku. This is the newly named company on our list. Roku has an estimated 10 million monthly users, and it is a company that produces highly competitive streaming devices that connect to the internet and allow you to display content on your television. It's similar to Apple TV or Amazon's Fire TV. The problem is that it is also including hundreds of private pornography channels, whereas Apple TV and Amazon's Fire TV strictly prohibit that. While Roku does not expressly allow these pornographic channels through their public channel store, they have allowed developers to set up private or hidden channels, and Roku has become a major mainstream destination for streaming sexually explicit content. I want to point out that pornographers have found this backdoor through Roku. They advertise for their channels all over, and they applaud Roku in form after form for being the only streaming device that allows for pornography. It is more alarming that many of these pornographers are creating two porn channels on the Roku system. One that is marked as pornography, it's very clear what the content is, but another channel that they are creating is often called a discrete channel. It has a misleading name and a misleading cover graphic to potentially hide these channels in Roku's homepage. Much of the pornography available through Roku's system is depicting incest, slavery, teen, and incredibly violent themes. I want to point out that no other media streamers offer the amount of explicit video streaming channels as is available on Roku. We call on Roku to follow the industry standards set forth by the other industry leaders and to get out of the business of distributing hardcore pornography. We want them to become a corporate leader in the fight for a world free from sexual exploitation. And we are calling on all of these to become leaders in that fight against sexual exploitation. Haley, will you close us out?
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's exciting to see that while a lot of these companies have a lot of progress that they need to make, there is amazing progress that is already happening. The Dirty Dozen list has led to many victories, whether those are policy changes at Google, Hilton worldwide, the Department of Defense, Walmart, and more. And you can find those out at dirtydozenlist.com. Also, as other companies slowly start moving away from exploitation, NCOSI has developed the watch list, which was mentioned briefly in the presentation, to track potential contenders for the future Dirty Dozen lists, depending on their follow-through on commitments and next actions. This year, Hyatt Hotels and Resorts is on the list as we wait for them to fully implement their 2015 pledge to remove all on-demand pornography from their guest rooms. Also, the Department of Justice is on the list as we wait to see if the new administration will enforce existing federal obscenity law. And as previously stated, Verizon is on this list as we analyze whether the company will take further action regarding their pornographic content. In order to encourage companies on the Dirty Dozen list to make this change, please remember that you can make a difference by going to dirtydozenlist.com. You can sign petitions, you can send emails to executives, you can share graphics online. And so this concludes our press conference. Thank you so much for tuning in, and visit dirtydozenlist.com. Thank you.